for every 60 podcasts that are currently out there, there is one flash briefing. It might be the most important tip, because if you're not consistent, your listeners are going to leave. Again, if you listen to a radio station one day and they're gone the next day, how often are you going to come back to that radio station? This is not my first slide. Can I get you guys to please go back a bit? Thank you. Wonderful. This is where I live. Well, I don't live in that silver ball because that would be weird. But this is my hometown. Anybody know where this is? Vancouver, the best city in the world after Chattanooga, of course. But Vancouver is a wonderful place, beautiful place. As you can see, there's the ocean, this is the Lionsgate Bridge, going to Stanley Park, we got the mountains, it's downtown Vancouver. And boy, if I had the foresight to buy some real estate along that beach 20 years ago, I wouldn't be investing in Bitcoin, but that's another story. So, what I want to talk about is opportunity. An opportunity today in 2020 with voice and the prime real estate of voice. You know, we can think about 2020 vision. And I think what's more appropriate today, as we enter the 20s, is to think about 2020 voice. And so I'm going to talk about the opportunity in audio content production with flash briefings, and how we can leverage this in the roaring 20s. I think it's really fitting that the 1920s were called the roaring 20s, and here we are in the 2020s, and we're talking about voice. And whoever has a really loud, strong roar is going to be heard over the other brands. So my name's Teri Fisher. I'm a physician by day, and a dad, a husband, and a voice tech enthusiast by night. And about 2.5 years ago, when I started getting into the voice space, I was looking for resources to help me learn how do I do this, and I didn't find much. And so I started some resources. I started the Alexa in Canada podcast, and this has taken off, all about consumers and how they can use Alexa and leverage the voice technology. I started my Voice in Canada flash briefing, and I'm very humbled to say that due to the support of the community, it's been the #1 rated flash briefing and news skill in Canada since it started over 700 days ago, 700 consecutive days. I started the briefcast.fm network, which is a network of curated briefcasters or flash briefing speakers who are producing some of the very best flash briefings out there. And in fact, almost half of those that have been named finalists for the Flash Briefing of the Year award here at Project Voice are part of this network. Bringing in my physician and my medical expertise, I decided to create some medical flash briefings, so I've started a suite of Voice First Health flash briefings, and I want to help the community, so I created a course called Flash Briefing Formula, entirely free, and I'll talk more about that later on. So, briefly, opportunity, and then we're going to talk about some tips for flash briefings. What are the numbers? I think of podcasts as the cousin to flash briefings. When you look at the numbers, there are 700,000 podcasts and 12,000 briefcasts or flash briefings. Put that another way, we're looking at, for every 60 podcasts that are currently out there, there is one flash briefing. Talk about opportunity. Here is the chance to get heard, to put your stake in the ground and become a leader in whatever your niche is. So let's get to these tips. Briefcast. Briefcast has 9 letters, and coincidentally, what do you know? I have 9 tips for you. So let's talk about these. B, brief. Be brief. As I'll show you, listeners are subscribing to multiple flash briefings, and they want quick content. They want to get in and out and get the little nuggets so they can move on. In fact, most of the people that are listening to flash briefings, after surveying my audience, say that they're subscribed to approximately 6 to 10. How many of you listen to flash briefings? Yeah. How many of you have your own flash briefing? So yeah, a couple, yeah. And how many of you are thinking about creating flash briefings? Quite a few. Okay, great, fantastic. And so here's what Peter Stewart said He's one of the members of the briefcast.fm network. I'm sure some of you listen to his briefcast, smart speakers. Flash briefings, the clue is right there in the name. Twice. The whole reason for them is that they are brief audio snippets over in a flash. Well said. Perfect. So let me give you some numbers. I asked my audience, I did a poll, what is the preferred length for a flash briefing episode? And what they found, or what they said, is that 50% of people prefer a 2-minute flash briefing. And in fact, 80% of people prefer 3 minutes or less. So yes, there are exceptions, but the sweet spot seems to be about 2 to 3 minutes, which is great for content creators because it actually doesn't take a lot of time to do this. You gotta be consistent, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. R, what's your reason for doing it? Another way of saying is that, what problem are you trying to solve? When you've got a Rubik's Cube in your hand, as we just heard, you try to solve that. You know what you're trying to solve. When you have a quality briefcast, I'm not saying, you could do one strictly for fun, and that's awesome, nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to solve a problem for a listener, that is how you're really gonna start to develop a nice relationship, and they're gonna come back day after day. And as Dave Kemp says in the Future Ear flash briefings represent a medium that allows the creator to crack into the listener's routine. It's an incredibly intimate medium. And when you have that connection and you're actually solving a problem for them, that's really powerful. Very, very powerful. An eye-catching icon. Now this may seem a little bit odd when we're talking about voice, but the reality is, at least as of today, the way people are finding flash briefings is they're looking at some type of visual display. And I asked my audience again, how are you finding your flash briefings? And this is what they said. Oh, excuse me. 68% of them are using some type of visual interface. The Alexa app, you can scroll through it and see icons. The briefcast.fm website, where we're cataloging these briefcasts and you can see the icons. And the Amazon website. 68% are, so if you have an eye-catching icon, that's gonna get someone's attention. Equipment. Use decent equipment. How many of you would like to listen to a radio station that's got a bunch of static or very tinny sound? This does not mean expensive. There is some very good, inexpensive equipment, and I can always give you some recommendations if you'd like. And again, Peter Stewart, the Smart Speakers, says, don't let the potential cost of doing a flash briefing put you off. It really can be quite cheap, simple, and straightforward to start. That is absolutely 100% true. And fun. Have fun with it. Be willing to experiment. Be willing to be creative. Amy Summers says, from The Pitch with Amy Summers, another fantastic flash briefing, use flash briefings to create interest and develop a relationship with your audience. And if you can create that interest, they're gonna wanna come back for more. And I wanna give you a little example of something that I've experimented with. So, for my 500th flash briefing, I wanted to do something a little special. I wanted to really engage the audience. I wanted to thank them. I wanted to give away some prizes. And I thought, I'm gonna create a game out of a flash briefing. How am I gonna do that? And I thought, well, here's how it's gonna work. For 2 weeks, every single day, I'm gonna give some type of riddle, a clue, a puzzle, something like that they can engage with and solve. And if they can solve that, they will go to another skill called Crack the Code, where they will talk to Alexa, and they will play the game. And if they can figure this out correctly, Alexa's gonna give them back a tiny little piece of a final code. And if they do it every single day, they're gonna get 14 pieces of that code. And if they can figure out the final code, they talk to Alexa, and Alexa tells them how they can enter to win the grand prize. Sounds like a lot of steps. I was like, is this gonna work? Oh, it worked. Let me tell you some of the results. This is sort of a schematic of what I had envisioned. What I had actually created then, without even really knowing it at the time, was I created a voice marketing funnel. Because people can be exposed to my brand in a number of different ways. Social media, through the website, through my podcast, or through my flash briefing. During that 2-week period, I decided, well, the game, as I mentioned, is played through the flash briefing. So I drove my traffic as much as possible towards the flash briefing. If they played the game and they wanted to engage that skill, they would then go and engage with that skill. If they figured out what was going on and the skill gave them the piece they needed, it would actually send them a text. And that text would send them back to my website where they could opt in for the contest. This generated email addresses, a contact list originally from my flash briefing. And let me tell you about the results of this. Just a little smattering of some things. So my flash briefing plays actually went up 20% for those 2 weeks compared to baseline. Flash briefing activations almost tripled for those 2 weeks during this. So lots of people were interested. This was something that got some interest. My web traffic doubled. My flash briefing plays that were done on the web, so I had my flash briefings embedded on my web as well, which is another tip, by the way. Definitely do that. That went up 200%. And just to give you an idea of how much brand recognition, when I looked at my Twitter impressions, it went up 2,100% from doing this game. And so, we're launching version 2, Crack the Code 2020. And with the help and the support of these sponsors, Trinity Audio, Audio Burst, Voice XP, Amazon, Voice Summit, Treble.fm, and Flash Briefing Formula, that's my course with my consultation. This is a new version, the same concept as what I just mentioned, and this starts tomorrow on the Voice in Canada Flash Briefing. Let's get back to some more tips quickly. C, consistent. This might be the most important tip, because if you're not consistent, your listeners are going to leave. Again, if you listen to a radio station one day and they're gone the next day, how often are you going to come back to that radio station? And as Jen Lehner from the Front Row Entrepreneur says, publishing consistently is really important. Listeners count on my briefing daily, and if I miss a day, I just don't think I would have the same devotion and loyalty from my listeners. And I agree with that 100% as well. Analyze. When you're creating your flash briefing, take time to strategize about your titles and descriptions. Google's a search engine, but Amazon is a search engine as well. And when people are searching for terms, think about how you're going to name your flash briefing, how you're going to put your keywords in, how you're going to describe it, because when people search for terms, be strategic, because they may actually find your flash briefing when they're searching for a related consumer good on Amazon. Daniel Hill from the Instagram Stories, another fantastic flash briefing. Pick a name that incorporates something people are searching for on Amazon or Google. That sums it up right there. Sonic branding. As you heard when I walked up, there was that music that played. That is my new Sonic brand, thanks to Audio Brain. Fantastic, fantastic. That is going to accompany all my assets. The same is true for flash briefings. Do you want to sound like everybody else, or do you want to stand out from the crowd? And as Emily Binder says from Voice Marketing with Emily Binder, she says, your consistent intro and outro should be on brand and short, under 5 to 10 seconds each. Perfect. And the T is for today. Today is the opportunity. 2020, now is the time to start. You saw those numbers at the beginning. Flash briefings are an incredible opportunity to get your message out to your niche, to your audience, and you need to take advantage of this. Andrea Tucker, Gluten-Free News, says, pick a topic you are passionate about. Creating a community around your flash briefing requires consistency and time. Very true. You need to be consistent. It takes time, but the best time to start is today. Take advantage of this. This is a really, really unique time and opportunity. And T also stands for treats. So I want to tell you about a couple of resources. Number one, as I mentioned, Flash Briefing Formula. This is a premium course. It's a comprehensive course. It covers everything from what equipment you need to how to set it up, to marketing, to the technology, to how to come up with a good name, the icons, the whole bit. It's a course that I designed. You can access it at flashbriefingformula.com. It's 100% free, completely free to you. And the other thing is, if you're interested in the voice marketing funnel and the gamified flash briefing that I was talking about, just recently, just on January 1st actually, I had a blog post published on Social Media Examiner. You can access it at alexincanada.ca/voicefunnel. It will take you there, and it is a step-by-step guide on how to create a voice marketing funnel with Amazon Alexa flash briefings. Again, it lays out exactly, tells you exactly how to do it so you can reproduce it as well. So again, remember, this is the opportunity. Don't have that hindsight. We were along the coast there. Take advantage of this prime real estate. Put your stake in the ground. Now is the time in 2020 to establish your brand using these flash briefings. Thank you very much.
Hey YouTubers, if you liked what you just saw, then feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't be afraid to speak up.